もう少しで。椿子の体を完全に乗っ取って、仏の末裔のすすを。
まさかそなたまでも返り討ちとはな。だがそなたの、いやそなたらすべてのすすと無念は我に受け継がれた。
Once, four of them had sat in this desolate doll memorial hall. Now only one was left. It symbolized how Suzumo had foiled his assailant at every turn, but it was also a symbol of how the divided soot had now gathered as one. The soot not only symbolized the curse, it made its manifestation even stronger. She heaved a sigh. It was heavy and full of malediction. That act alone burst several doll heads. She slowly stood up and opened her eyes. That act alone created thunder and robbed the sky of its brilliance.
十分なすす、十分な呪い、十分な力。無論十分な災厄を起こせるやもしれぬが、妹たちをことごとく返り討ちとして操めを無視することはできぬもの。あれのすすをすすろうぞ。そしてこの力をも超える呪いにてこの地に災いを。
I felt the unease, no, the pain of another boulder in my stomach. My stomach was flat to the touch, but I felt swollen to the point of bursting at the seams. I'd suffered discomfort from this sensation before, but it was completely different. The boulders felt like they were gathering together and attempting to rupture my stomach from the inside out. It was pure agony. I suddenly keeled over and vomited. But the moment I threw up, the boulders felt like they were stacking up even higher inside me. I heaved over and over again, but nothing came out. But the tearing pain in my stomach refused to leave.
これが限界なのか。
I didn't know if I could take any more. Was this not the pain my ancestors had endured this past millennium? But this level of agony must have been the pain the mother of the quintuples had felt. The soot within me was trying to break the seal and burst free of its containment. My face was clammy with sweat, yet I rose to my feet. I could still hold out for a while longer. I still dreamed of a miracle too. I believed that if I could endure but one more day, salvation would arrive. A splitting pain shot through my body. This was it for me. The bell from the main hall flashed through my mind. Right, now was the time to do as my mother's will said. My mother's will said I would meet my end in that cold bronze bell.
黒髪さんを助け出すって約束するよ。
Suzumon! I glimpse a blurry emotion. I glimpse a blurry memory of a scene I'd either never witnessed or had forgotten so completely that it seemed utterly foreign to me. No one could possibly break that cold bell, that fate, that had served as the trigger for our 1,000 years of suffering.
やってみなきゃわからないよ。
Suzuhara had said that as though it were nothing.
木すら倒せぬお前に聖堂の壁が打ち破れるか。
聖堂、厚さは？
さあ、お前の拳の幅くらいはあるかもな。
さすがに無理だよ。そんな厚さの合金の壁を破るなんて、拳じゃなくて大砲の出番だと思うな。
Anyway, Suzuhara couldn't save me.
でも、
My heart dared to skip a bit. My eyes found their way to Suzuhara's, and I breathed in. His expression was serene as a tranquil lake. His gaze was wholeheartedly sincere.
黒髪さんがそれを打ち破られることで救われるなら、僕はもっと修行を積んで、いつか必ずそれを僕の拳で打ち破ってみせると約束。
Was he serious? At that moment I saw it. The glint in his eyes wasn't that of a deluded human who possessed no foresight whatsoever. They burned a divine scarlet glow, one I'd never seen before. So he truly was Mutsu. I had known from the moment I saw him. And then, cursing my body that bore too much soot for us to be together, I screamed that it was all too late. 10 years too late, 100 years too late, 1,000 years too late. But Mutsu had come back to me after a millennium. That was a miracle in and of itself. Oh, of course. So my miracle had already been used up. Then I really was the last one. I would mark the end of the 1,000 years of suffering. He might have been too late, but I was glad I'd be granted the miracle of Mutsu's return. You're too late, Suzumu Suzuhara. You're 10 years too late, 100 years too late, 1,000 years too late. Why didn't you save me back then? You're too late, you're too late.
10年遅い、100年遅い、1000年遅い。
やってみなきゃわからないよ。
Suzuhara didn't hesitate a moment. He interrupted my bitter ramblings with a warm smile.
僕はもっと修行を積んで、いつか必ずそれを僕の拳で打ち破ってみせると約束するよ。
その修行、どれだけかかるやら。
そうだね。その意味では確かに黒髪さんの言う通りだね。遅すぎる。10年、100年、いや、1000年は修行しないとダメかもしれないよ。でも、それでも僕が必ずそれを打ち破って黒髪さんを助け出すって約束するよ。
As if I had 1,000 years to wait for his training. But his valiant declaration warmed my heart. There was a violent flash in the sky, followed by thunder loud enough to strip the bark off a withered tree. Even those indoors cowered in fear. However, Suzumu continued training without batting an eye. Something felt strange about his punches today. The sensation was different, and the more he punched, the surer he became that he was on the verge of some kind of breakthrough. The certainty filled his heart with an odd sense of elation, as he sensed he would reach a level never before attained. That feeling only grew stronger with every punch. And so he didn't even register the thunder. Not even the cold downpour could dull his mind. He shook off the rain as his punches grew more and more precise. Though the storm was chilling his shoulders, his body was blazing hot from the inside out. Steam faintly rose from his collars and cuffs. It was an awe-inspiring sight, like he was ascending to some sort of divine realm. And in fact, that was what he was trying to achieve. An outsider might find it hard to believe with a boy so young, but his training, no, not just his ancestors' 1,000 years of training, the long discipline that had begun with Musu's promise, was on the verge of reaching fruition. Suzumu could feel that in his fist. 3 times had the curse festering in his friend's mental trauma targeted him, and 3 times he had emerged victorious. Of course, they were nothing compared to the curse that dwelt within Toe. In hindsight, perhaps, they all simply been weak. But they were all part of the divine curse regardless. And Suzumu had destroyed all 3 of them. During his 3rd victory, Suzumu had felt a different sensation than before. And ever since then, the more he trained, the closer he could sense himself approaching the realms of gods. It wouldn't be long until he reached it. The roar of the rain grew stronger, resembling a waterfall. Eventually, Suzumu began to feel like he was really punching a cliff behind a waterfall. Just then he noticed the heavens were shining bright. A light shone through the clouds as though from the top of a faraway waterfall. It bore a dignified and divine presence as it mixed with the waterfall spray, creating a rainbow. A booming voice echoed from far beyond the brilliance. Suzumu knew then that it was the god to whom the Fist of the Susuhara divine tribute style had always been dedicated. The voice was gentle and clear, with a solemnity and grandeur that could only belong to a deity. Rokugami Mikoto! Oh, sorry. Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto.
よくぞこの1000年我にその拳を奉じ続けたそなたの願い通り今こそその拳に奇跡を宿らせようだが聞け神の与える奇跡とは人の身の器には有り余ってなお過ぎるものだ。その身にて奇跡を起こせば、それと引き換えにその身がどうなるか、我にもわからぬぞ。この1000年という年月は、そなたにとっても十分な月日であったろう。怨嗟も憤怒もそして悲恋の痛みもあるいは言えてあるいは忘却の彼方に流し去ることもできたかもしれんだからそなたは奇跡を望まぬこともできる人が生きて生き続ける力は人が求めるどんな奇跡よりも尊い力があるのだから
いいえ彼女たちの苦しみを終わらせるためだけに今日までの日々があったのです彼女たちは今日まで呪いを封じ続けるためだけに命を1000年もの間捧げ続けてきたのですそれを終わらせることが僕の身一つを捧げるだけで叶うのならば喜んでこの拳にて奇跡を起こして奉りまする
そう言うだろうと思っていたその覚悟に揺るぎがないこと確かに見届けたぞよかろうそなたの拳に奇跡の力与えようぞ だが神が奇跡を起こせば一つの歯車の動きが別の歯車を動かすように神の呪いもまた権限する。その奇跡を拳に宿したならもはや一刻の猶予もないぞ。奇跡を起こすならいっそ
Suzumu, Suzumu.
しっかり
Oh, what's going? Did we fall?
聞こえちゃう。
大丈夫？いつから倒れてたの？雨でぐっしょりじゃない？
I came to flying face up on the ground, rain pouring on my face as if I looked up into the sky. Kiko was making a fuss about me catching a cold or getting struck by lightning, but none of that concerned me. I felt I made an important decision in my dream. Though I'd lost all my memory of it when I woke up, I knew it was a momentous decision I'd made my own will, one that would dictate my fate. That conviction resided in my heart, blazing quietly but fiercely. The heat was intense, like a tiny spear of scorched iron had bored itself into my chest.
熱あるよ。やっぱり風邪をひいちゃったんだよ。
熱は感じる。でも心配しないで。風邪とかじゃないから。
本当に大丈夫なの？
心配かけてごめんね。シャワー浴びて着替えてくるね。
I could feel a ball of heat burning in my chest. Though it was a blazing hot, it brought no pain or discomfort. Slowly but surely, I could feel it spreading through my blood vessels and into my fists. Though I couldn't remember what my dream was about, I knew this had to be the divine inspiration. It wasn't arrogance or hubris speaking, purely conviction.
父さん、僕は鈴原流親善武術を完成。
The heat in my chest didn't cool even after I went to bed. Quite the opposite, it grew hotter and hotter and continued surging into my fists. I had countless dreams in my slumber. They were our memories of the past 1,000 years. The memories of Mutsu, who dedicated his life to training under a waterfall in order to bring about the miracle of crushing unjust malice and demonstrating the righteous path. Eventually, that will was condensed into a single word: Hajakensho. Crush evil and demonstrate the righteous path. In order to crush the unjust evil of the curse she and her descendants had been forced to bear and demonstrate the righteous path forward. Mutsu's descendant grew up witnessing his dedication and training, and inherited it from him in turn. In order to obtain the fist to crush evil and demonstrate the righteous path, in order to keep the promise of dedicating it to God for 1,000 years, the faces of my ancestors who had held that oath passed by one after another. Hundreds of years flew by in the blink of an eye. As time passed, the ultimate objective behind the divine tribute style was eventually forgotten, but in spite of that, Mutsu's conviction held true, and his descendants continued to dedicate their fists to God with fervor. The memories of my great-grandfather, grandfather, and father, along with the noble training they accumulated, flooded into me like a raging stream, and now the time had come. After 1,000 years, the miracle Mutsu had desired had finally arrived. The will of my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and the one who started it all, Mutsu, coursed through me.
今助ける鈴の目そっけー邪魔をするな
抑えろ。殺しても構わぬ。お兄さん、何をもたもたしておるか。さっさと釣り鐘を落とすのじゃ。せせらめ。
No miracle had dwelt in Mutsu's fist back then, but he wished for one, even if it would take 1,000 years to arrive. And I would see it through. I would put an end to this. I would save Suzunome and her daughters. Kurokami, I swear I will save you. The next day, I was still partially in a dream even after waking up. I could remember last night's dream as clear as day, as though it had been etched into my soul. The flame in my chest grew warmer. My fists were burning with scorching heat. But this wasn't enough. The heat would keep growing stronger and feeding the flames in my fists. God's miracle needed some time to settle in a human body. But I could tell that wouldn't take long. Soon the time came to leave. I decided to go to school. That way I could see Kurokami. I wanted to let her know she would soon be released from the suffering of the curse. A ray of hope would be just what she needed right now. I needed her to know as soon as possible.
スズム、やっぱり熱があると思うよ。
ちょっと微熱っぽいけどね。でも全然大丈夫だよ。
無理しないで、今日はお休みしたら？
そういうわけにはいかないよ。僕も皆勤賞を狙ってるからね。
具合が悪くなってもアイドントノーノーだからね。
Kurokami wasn't there.
黒髪？今日はまだ来てないな。あいつは遅刻も欠席もグレートに気まぐれなやつだからな。
黒髪さんに何か用事でもあったの？
うん。ちょっと伝えたいことがあって。
待ってたら来るんじゃない？午後とかあるいは部活とかに。
さすがグレート黒髪、優雅なご投稿だね。
I was trying everything in my power to go to school. I could tell my end was near, so I wanted to see Suzumu's face. Once I did and confirmed no miracle would arrive, I could live without any regrets. So I fought against the nigh unbearable agony in my stomach as I struggled to walk.
トエさん、大丈夫か。ひどい熱だ。誰か社務所に伝えてくれ。そんな高熱じゃ無理だ。あんたの家系は特に体が弱いんだから大事にしなきゃ。
I could faintly hear the shrine staff come out of the office and encircle me, asking if I was alright. But my mind was being dragged into another haunting's daydream.
早くお嬢様を母屋に。早く早く。
Let me go, let me go. I had to see Mutsu, Suzumu. I was probably brought back to my room. Having spent most of my life in nightmares since the haunting starts plaguing me, I could tell by the sensations, though I perceived them as something else entirely. I was lying in a room lined with countless red candles. They were all sticking out from the severed hands used as candlesticks. The fingers twitched from time to time. They hadn't been severed for long, apparently. and hanging from the ceiling like laundry was a gallery of twitching human-shaped lumps, their severed hands and peeled off skin, rendering them unidentifiable as male or female. Of course, I didn't let sights like this bother me. All I had to do was imagine I was watching some horror movie I'd been dragged along to see. Once I learned how to freeze my heart over with apathy, I could last through any number of hauntings. But even here, the agony in my stomach was as merciless as ever. I endured the pain and nausea welling up in my throat as I slowly got up. I knocked over several hands and candles in the process, but paid them no heed. Despite what I saw, I was confident this was my room. If I let everything I saw in this distorted world get to me, that would just thrill the evil spirits behind this haunting. Of course, it was very difficult to ignore everything my senses told me, and I could never get used to it. The whole thing was pure torture. I'd probably been changed into my night clothes, so I took a school uniform made of blood-stained human skins out of my closet of dangling bodies and got dressed. I staggered with agony to the lattice door fastened with entrails, probably the sliding door, and left the room. Caressed my hair. At that moment, the repugnant world faded away like melted snow, and returned to the world I knew so well. I must have finally regained my sanity. I checked myself in the window of a nearby clock store and discovered that while I had managed to put my own uniform on, it was all disordered, like I'd put it on while still waking up. I was already used to this by now, so I just made the necessary adjustments then and there without any fuss. I took a look at the clock in the store and realized that the hands were already well past noon. All the time I'd spent in the abhorrent world of meat and blood just staggering my way towards school had been taken 6 hours in the real world. The time I spent sane was limited, while the time I spent in nightmares was so long yet over in a flash. That was my life. The curse was hardening into stones and filling my stomach. That had to be what this was. Every time I moved, I felt them roll around, tearing through my stomach and trying to break loose. Can I even make it to school? The moment I thought that signaled my end had all but to come. Once I resumed my faltering march, the crowd cleared the way for me as though nothing were unusual. The whole town was already used to seeing me like this. No one knew I was protecting this land by suffering from hellish nightmares day after day. And in their 1,000 years, no one had thanked me, thanked us. Yet even in spite of that, we continued to sacrifice our life to keep this curse sealed. Though we weren't doing it for honor or gratitude, this was merely the fate that we'd all been handed this past 1,000 years. I was protecting this gentle and peaceful world, knowing that was our one and only source of pride. It was our duty to protect these children's smile. When I thought of it that way, I realized just how much of a reward Susuhara's arrival was after a millennium of torment. Indeed, that was the miracle we've been handed for enduring. Indeed, that was the miracle we've been handed for enduring the last 1,000 years. So I wouldn't hold out hope for another one ever again. I no longer had any reason to believe I'd ever be released from my suffering. As such, I'd stop wishing for a miracle. All I wanted was to go to Suzuhara and meet Mutsu's face one last time. That was all I asked for. School had ended, yet Kurokami never showed up. However, there was a chance she'd appeared at the LCSC, so I decided to be on that chance and go to the club room. But the heat in my chest had grown so hot that it was making me dizzy. I knew this wasn't due to a fever, but it felt very similar to one. The power of a miracle was beyond a human body to begin with. Perhaps my body was screaming from the effort of trying to obtain it.
無理しないで帰んなよ。私もずっとそう言ってるんですけど、頑固で。
別に部活はサボっても皆勤賞には響かないと思うぜ。
そうかもね。
黒髪さんに伝言があるなら、私が会った時に言っておくよ。タマユンに頼めば？よくクロッチに電話してるそうだし。
そうだね。今日来ないならそうしようかな。
おいおい、フラフラだぜ。無理をしても全然グレートじゃねえや。
Even Natsu was unsettled by this. Liria stopped by earlier, but she took one look at me and went home with a guilty look on her face. Not that I blamed her. She couldn't work if I got her sick. I was fine, but I was already being a burden on the others.
ちょっと保健室に。
それを言うの、ちょっとレイトだよ。
肩を貸すぜ。
あれ、クロッチ？
Oh, Kurokami. I turned around and saw her trying to enter the clubroom. She was staggering just as much as me. Even though Suzuma's presence was supposed to ward off hauntings, the world distorted again the moment Toe saw him. But there was no macabre illusion this time. Instead, everything had gone monochrome and frozen in time. Yet Suzuma was still in vivid color for some reason. It was then that the divine curse appeared before Toe.
我に感謝せよ、トエ。そなたのけなげな願いを叶えてやろうと思ったからこそ、今そなたはここにある。
Then the other option was
すす原進むとちぎりを交わすのだ。
what? I'm sorry, what?
それできれば黒は。
Toe took in the suit of whoever she laid with. Oh, I see. That was why she'd been forced to take someone like Sho Kamenuma as her fiancé. He didn't have a trace of suit in him. So even though she was Suzunome's descendant and Suzumu was Mutsu's, they could not be together.
いずれにせよ、すすだきの秘術は明日の夜明けを待たずに破れる。ならば最後の時くらい、1000年を超えて再び出会えた運命の男と体を重ねて迎えたいとは思わぬか？
Something warm and bashful welled up and spread to Toe's body. It was luscious and turned her legs to jelly, a false love brought on by the curse. The divine curse tried to make herself stronger by forcing her host to lie with a man who possessed even a bit of soot. So she awoke in the descendant of the sacrifice feeling of love proportional to the amount of soot involved. Of course, that wasn't to say Suzumu wasn't charming in his own right, but the love Tsubakiko, Kanae, and Riria felt for him was in no small part due to the curse's whispers. So for Toe, who had by far the strongest and most soot of them all, it was nigh irresistible. Her breathing grew labored as her body heated up. Her body longed for Suzumu Susuhara. Toe did everything in her power to resist those urges. Resist the horniness, Toe. Toe! Resist!
何をためらうのか、トエよ。
With that, Suzumu and the time resumed their movements, but the world remained colorless.
黒髪さん、具合悪いの？
すす腹こそ
Oh,
足がふらついている。
what? Oh yeah, he's sick. The pair staggered toward each other, almost like they were suffering the same ailment.
君にどうしても伝えたいことが。
伝えたい。
僕が絶対に君を呪いから救うか。
Suzumu's body shook violently.
おい、大丈夫かよ。肩を貸すぜ。
保健室に早く。先生いるかな。
トエ、そなたの選択しかと受け取ったぞ。誇り高く最後まで生贄としてさらなるすすを拒むその矜持、見上げたものよ。なれば明日の朝はおろか、今宵の月さえも待つ必要はあるまい。
Oof. The stones in Toe's stomach welled and grew into gargantuan proportions. Her stomach was tearing from the inside out.
かなえ、椿子、リリア、3人の蓄えたすすはすでに我が身に取り込んだ。そしてそなたの体を得て、我は最悪の執行者となろうぞ。だがそなたがいらぬというなら、すす原鈴のすすは我がもらい受ける。
知った。あの3人のすすを集めたのは雛形のすすはないけれど、今ほとんどのすすはお前に集まっている。
Hinagata?
雛形真由とは巡り合わせ悪く、運命の歯車が合わなかった。あれもまたそなたらと同じ弱いであったなら、我の声が届いたものを。
Hinagata was a grown woman who'd made it through adolescence. It was difficult for the divine curse and hauntings to instigate adults due to their heightened spiritual defenses for the loss of sync with their spiritual channels.
しかし問題はない。その分のすすをすす原鈴の生き肝よりもらう。そなたの爪と歯を使ってな。
お気の毒だけど、全てがあんたの思い通りになると思ったら間違いよ。
何を言い出す？
もう呪いを封じ込むことはできない。そうね、あんたの価値よ。それは間違いない。でもね、あんたのその価値にまだいくばくかなできる、いや、風が。 残ってるんだから。
ない。今よりお前の体は我のものとなる。そなたにどのような企みがあろうとも、もはや瞬きの自由さえ与えぬ。
However, she'd fallen victims to hubris. She had remained a spectator because she was confident she could take over Toe's body at any time she pleased. Toe reached into her breast pocket with trembling fingers. Inside was the student name tag she never wore.
それで何ができるというのか。
こういうことが。
She unfastened the safety pin and after a moment's hesitation, Kanae shrieked and fell still. It was no surprise considering what just happened. Wow. She witnessed Toe stabbing herself deep under her left index finger's nail with the needle of her name card. It was a sudden sharp pain that few could possibly tolerate. Having a needle shoved under one's fingernails would cause anyone to squirm. Her mother's letter had described it as a last-ditch move to regain one's sanity in a pinch. Finally, Noroimoto Shrine came into view. The shrine built not for celebration, but solely to keep the curse sealed. Toe cautiously hid her hand so no one noticed. She couldn't afford any obstacle to her plan, not at this point. After all, she only had so many fingers. Toe headed for the main hall. Her thoughts turned to the letter left by her mother and grandmother. This was a mockery that had spent 1,000 years. Though it appeared the humans had sealed away the curse with the soot gathering spell, over the course of a millennium, the curse gathered more soot and grew. It was likely far more powerful than the curse Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto had reigned on the village 1,000 years prior. This curse was man's punishment. It had a cursed interest in exchange for being put off for so many years, and now the time had come to pay the price. Though the millennium of suffering may not have prevented the coming disaster, Toe wanted to protect this land for as long as she could. Otherwise, she and her ancestors would have suffered for nothing. What's more, she couldn't help but laugh at this result.
けなげに己を痛めながらどこを目指すかと思えば、そなたたちを鈴の目にすすだきの邪法を執り行ったあの梵鐘の前とは。もしやそなたはその身を梵鐘に封じようというのか。
お前は呪いという超越の存在だけれど、この1000年の間唯一お前を隔てることができたものがある。
すすだきの邪法の梵鐘か。
The divine curse furrowed her brow for the first time. Though her smile was confident, her eyes held a twinge of concern.
呪いの鈴は梵鐘に封じられて生贄に全てを吸収された。つまりお前は梵鐘に隔てられたら外へ出ることはできない。
そなたは一つ忘れておる。梵鐘がどのような形か知らぬと見える。
分かってる。それでもお前の目論みは少しでも邪魔することはできる。
小賢しいや鈴の目の末裔め。
She had to hurry. Toei crawled under the temple bell hanging from the rope. It was pitch black and painfully deafening on the inside. Toei sat up straight and calmed her heart.
かけまくも賢き呪い元神社のお前を拝み立て祭りてかしこみも大作
When Toei started chanting the prayer, a faint creak filled the silent space. Though she couldn't see it, it was the sound of the bundle of rice plants holding the bell up starting to tear. The heavy bell began to sway a little.
やめよ愚か者このようなところに我を閉じ込めたとて最悪は変わらぬそれをすべてくれてやるもてあそんでやるなぶってやるおぞましさに腹渡を吐き出してもなおそなたが死をもって救いを求める嘆きが1000年間こだまするまでそれでも良いのか
How is that different than what she is experiencing now, all her life?
この1000年お前がそれほど悲痛に叫ぶのは初めてだな
Suzumu's eyes shone scarlet. The power of miracles now dwelt entirely in his fists. His body shouldn't have been able to bear it. The strain should have kept him in bed for many hours. However, he leapt to his feet with such agility, it was hard to imagine he'd only just woken up. What? What? My skull! My window! Suzume entered the raised bell and sat down. She then closed her eyes and concentrated. Before long, her senses of sight and hearing were completely sealed away. Amidst that silent world, Suzume quietly gave in to her fate.
よし、釣り鐘をかぶせるのじゃ。
All the soot was sealed into the sacrifice, and the 1,000 years of suffering began. She took the divine curse into her, and was subjected to a millennium of torment at the hand of its wrath. 1,000 years passed, and now the sacrifice would begin the cycle anew. Another millennium of torture for Suzume, Toe, would begin here and now. Mutsu didn't have the power of miracles. That was why he couldn't prevent the first millennium. That was why he had wished for a miracle and dedicated himself to God for 1,000 years. And then a miracle came to dwell in the fist Suzumu had inherited. Now he had the power. Now he could prevail. Suzumu ran like the wind. Several of his toes had broken under that force. But he didn't feel pain. He didn't have the time to. All he perceived was the heat in his fists, his anxiety at the lack of time, and gratitude. Gratitude for the miracle that had allowed him to run for her sake once again after 1,000 years. By the time he passed through the shrine archway, Suzumu's feet were tattered, his pant cuffs were torn, and streams of blood trickled down his bare calves. His feet were bloody, leaving behind red-hot footprints in their wake.
Toe!
It was just like 1,000 years ago. Toe couldn't hear him because she'd already closed off her heart. But even if she didn't answer, Suzumu knew. He could see Suzume, Toe, trying to seal herself in the bell at this very moment.
今助ける
Suzume! The soot piled up like snow in a pitch-black snowfield, the accursed bell enshrined in the center. The bell was not hanging. It was already standing firmly on the ground, the sacrifice sealed inside again.
ムツ、いや、今の名は鈴むか。また1000年前を繰り返したな。
Wrath was a fury brought down upon those who incur it. But after 1,000 years, all the villagers who had betrayed the deer were long gone. Their anger for this land had not settled, but unleashing a calamity on children who had forgotten their father's sins would hardly be a satisfying reward to centuries of wrath. That was why Suzumu couldn't bring himself to be angry at the curse. It wasn't just Mutsu and Suzunome. For the divine curse, these 1,000 years had also been just as long, just as cruel, and just as sad. For Suzumu's position, the curse looked as though she was forcing a merry laugh, as though trying to shake off the pang of emotion that had swelled up within her.
だからなんだというのか、鈴む。この地には我が罰するにふさわしい人間がすでにいないから呪いを諦めて消え去れというのか。
虫のいい話だ。
何を言うかと思えばそれは我のセリフではないか。
Yeah, I also been curious how did we resolve this? Like, there's a 1,000-year curse. The villagers all long gone. The perpetrator, the culprit, the killers were all dead. This curse, this divine curse, has been sealed 1,000 years of pain, tormenting Toe. How would we resolve this? I'm curious of it also.
因果応報。罪には罰がなければならない。
When the divine curse swung her right arm down, another whirlwind erupted from her feet and blew the suit up. She grasped the sword of the gods, the seven-branched sword, in her hands, burning scarlet with heat.
君の怒りは最もなんだ。君には怒る権利も呪う権利も吠える権利もたける権利もある。でも僕はそれを全て抱きしめて今悲しき1000年の終わりと始まりがつながることを打ち壊す。
Suzumu vanished into the pitch-black whirlwind. The divine curse stepped back just in time to dodge Suzumu's punch. He was fast, too fast for the divine curse to keep track of. Now that he had reached the realms of gods, Suzumu was a match for a god himself. He could easily match the curse's speed.
滅びよ、鈴む。神の怒りを知れ。
僕の拳は六神彦の御に与えられしものだ。
何をよまいごと。
陸奥は六神彦の御の声を聞いた。そして1000年が始まった。これは君の運命なんだ。僕がここにあることが。
The shine of Suzumu's fist spoke volumes to his sincerity, for it held the same scarlet gleam as the divine curse's sword.
我らの一族の誰がお前に力を与えたというのか。与えるわけがない。兄上様のご無念を知る我らが与えるわけがない。そんなまさか兄上様が。
よくぞ我らの怒りを今日までずっと 1000年もの間、よくぞ耐え続けてくれ
た。兄上様。
神の呪いはあるべきところへ今こそ帰る時。さあ帰ろう。愛しい愛しい。
お前はあなたは。
迎えに来たよ。1000年もの間、僕のためにありがとう。
今こそ呪わしき1000年の終わる時。
The seven-branched sword slowly fell from the hands of the divine curse. Her scarlet eyes brimmed with tears. Suzumu's fist left trails of light behind as he slowly launched it forward, and a moment later, he struck the divine curse in the heart. The cursed bell that had marked the beginning of that accursed millennium and was attempting to usher in a new one was split in two. Suzumu's divine fist had just brought a miracle. And then, like a newborn chick peeking out of its egg, Toe peered through the gap, too stunned to move. Overcome with surprise, she forgot to even blink. All she could do was stare up at Suzumu. Suzumu didn't move, as though he'd been frozen in place, but his lips were curled into a smile.
助けに来たよ、トエ。1000年もごめんね。
Toe had definitely heard those words. Her body became unbelievably light the moment the bell miraculously broke, as light as it once was before her hauntings and had begun in her adolescence. Not a single trace of the 1,000-year curse remained in Toe's body, but her rejoicing could wait. Something far more pressing stood before her. Suzumu slowly collapsed. He didn't shield himself with his arm to break the fall the way the living would. Instead, he collapsed mechanically, like a puppet that fulfilled its role, the way the dead would fall. Toe dumbfoundedly approached Suzumu. There was no movement from him as she approached, not even the twitch of a finger. Oh no! She lifted his head up, only for it to limply fall on its side. His chest burned with a righteous heat, but did not rise. His arms and legs were sprawled out, hanging like wilted flowers.
待った10年待った100年待った1000年待った。それでようやく再会できたのではないか。その再会をどうして私たちは喜び合えぬのか。喜ぼうではないか。私は喜んでいるぞ。ほら、嬉し涙が止まらぬ。 止まらぬ。
だからどうか進む。お前もどうか笑って。
A divine miracle was too much for a human body. So was this the price he'd paid for it? Suzumu must have known. Once he came to possess a god's power, he knew his end was close. But even so, he hadn't faltered. Instead, he felt he'd gotten a bargain on that miracle. He died to save the woman he'd loved for 1,000 years. No man could ask for a greater death than that. That was why Suzumu's face was frozen in a satisfied smile. His face beamed as he slept in Toe's arm, basking in her gentle warmth.
そんな男の身勝手で勝手に一人先立って後に残される女の気持ちが。
Toe could hold herself back no longer. Toe threw her head back to face the heavens as she held the lifeless body of the man she loved and wept.
Kurokami Toe. 我の声が聞こえるか。我は六神彦の御事なり。我の声が聞こえるか。
聞こえる。あんたが殺した。あんたが鈴むを殺したんだ。
あるいは耐えられるかもしれないと思ったのだ。鈴原鈴むならば奇跡の代償に耐えうると我も信じた。だが奇跡は二つは重ならなかった。呪いを破ってそなたを救い、鈴むもまた奇跡の代償に耐える。その二つの奇跡を祈ったのだ。
こんな奇跡なんて残酷。こんな奇跡ならいらない。私いらない。
罪滅ぼしにもならぬだろうが、そなたの願いを一つ我が力にて叶えたい。望みはあるか。
生き返らせて。鈴もう今すぐ生き返らせて。
死は覆せぬ。生が尊くあるがゆえに、死の神聖を犯すことは我であってもかなわぬのだ。仮の命を吹き込むことはできるが、限られた短い時間となる。
そんなの生き返ったって言わない。生き返らせて。鈴も生き返らせて。お願い。また1000年私が呪われてもいいから。私をどれだけ苦しめてもいいから。だから鈴むを生き返らせて。
Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto was merciful. No matter how deeply Toe succumbed to sorrow, it continued to wait quietly and patiently. Eventually, Toe wiped away her tears.
役立たず。うちの神社は役に立たない神様を祀ってるわ。
Her eyes were red. but they regained a bit of their shine.
私は今進むのためなら私が死んでもいいって思ったわ。そういうことなのね。進むに感謝して私一人で生きろと、そういうことなのね。ありがとう進む。あなたはいつも遅い。10年遅い、100年遅い、1000年遅い。でも今回はちゃんと間に合ったよ。
Toe smiled as tears framed her face and stroked Suzumu's cheek. It was still a little warm.
徳上彦の御事様、私の願いは一つ。
Huh?
聞こ
こんな悲しい目に遭うのは私だけでたくさん。だから私はもう一組の私たちに奇跡を託すわ。
What?
鈴の目とムツに奇跡を。ムツが儀式に間に合い鈴の目を救い出す。そして二人は結ばれるという奇跡。
う。それを叶えても今いるこの時代、この世界には何の変化も生じぬが良いか。
別に構わないわ。言ったでしょ。こんな目に遭うのは黒髪トエと鈴原鈴だけでたくさんだって。ムツが助けに間に合い鈴の目は邪法の儀式から救われる。呪いは村に降りかかり滅ぶかどうかは知ったことじゃない。でも呪いもまた彼らのものよ。罪に対して罰が正しく下されるだけのこと。罰を先送りにする邪法など邪悪でしかない。
Yes. I'm looking at you, Grandma. What? Huh? Oh, yes, this is Suzunome. For a while, none of the villagers could move, as though time had stopped. The villagers, the mayor, Suzunome, and even Mutsu himself were all astonished. No one believed that a human body, a human fist, could have the power to break a temple bell. But all of them had seen it. The scarlet, heavenly glow from Mutsu when he punched the bell.
神の怒りじゃ。
Scram, old man, I hate you. The villager prostrated themselves before Mutsu, one after another, as though he were a god himself. Indeed, they could all feel a divine presence residing in Mutsu. Mutsu also came to understand. A divine will had endowed itself in his fist.
ムツ、
助けに来たよ。鈴の目、遅くなってごめん。
Though Suzunome was bare naked, she didn't care. She ran into Mutsu's arms. Mutsu embraced her dearly so they would never be apart again. Oh no, I'm crying! The soot surfaced from Suzunome's marble skin like oozing ink. All the cursed soot she absorbed into her body escaped and scattered into the air. The ritual had been destroyed, so the soot was expelled from the sacrifice's body. There wasn't a single patch left on her. Her body was back to its beautiful, pristine self. and though there were no clouds, soot fell over from the sky like snow. Though it was a cursed soot, the sunlight gave it a divine, even beautiful aura. The soot rained on the village once more. The curse had returned to its proper place. Punishment had been delivered to those who broke their promise with the sacred deer. The villagers were devastated to realize their village was cursed again. Mutsu spoke to lift their spirits.
何が起こるかわからないけれど、またみんなで頑張ればいいよ。仕方がないよ。これはお山の六神様を裏切った僕たちへの罰なんだから。だから甘んじて受け入れよう。そしてみんなで許しを請おう。
六神様はわしらを許してくれるかの。
いつかはわからないけれど、
1,000 years.
僕たちがちゃんと申し訳ない気持ちを持って罰を受け試練に耐え、それでも敬いの気持ちを忘れなかったなら、きっと六神様だって許してくれると思うね、鈴の目。
はい。六神様は私たちが敬いの心を忘れなかったなら、必ずいつの日にか許してくださるでしょう。
立とうみんな。そして村に帰りみんなに伝えよう。僕たちは罰を受ける。そして神様への敬いを忘れずに持ち続け、いつの日にか必ず許しをもらおうって。
ムツの言う通りじゃ。
Oh, shut up.
これはすべて欲の皮を突っ張らせたわしらへの罰じゃ。悔い改めていつの日にか許しを得るんじゃ。わしらの村は六神様のお山と共にあるのだからな。
The villagers stood. The fiendish visages they wore as they tried to scapegoat Tsunome to the soot had all vanished without a trace. Instead, their expressions were all composed, as though they'd been released from possessions. And then, each and every one of them apologized to Tsunome for what they put her through.
帰ろうみんな。
六神様と共に生きていきましょう。
そうとも。僕たち人間は神様と一緒にこの地に共存しているのだから。
The two nodded at each other. Everyone then headed back towards the village. All that remained was the broken temple bell. It served as proof of the miracle that had occurred here, and the miracle their descendant from 1,000 years into the future had wished for. And so the village's days of punishments under the divine curse began. The soil lost its divine blessings, the field fell into ruin, and troubles with the dry field crops increased. The harvest also yielded little for the effort that had gone into it, and the result were no good by any standard. But the villagers split the scant harvest and managed to overcome a hungry winter. The animals of the mountain became violent, making hunting a dangerous task. Monsters would appear and threaten the village from time to time, but the villagers stood tall together. They accepted their lot not as a curse but as their punishment, and even though their life grew harder, they continued cherishing their god. They offered up some of their meager harvest and continued to appease Rokugami Hiko no Mikoto. Suzuname was revered as the village priestess. The villagers obediently followed her teachings and renewed their respect for the divine. The children lost their smiles amidst their poor lives, but Mutsu's never faded. Eventually, thanks to his influence, they regained their smiles one after another. The children regained their vitality, and in time, the whole village found the laughter they had once lost. Years passed as the curse continued. 1, 2, and in time 5. The villagers had completely adapted to their environment by this point. They referred the monster as messengers of the divine and gave offerings to the forest and mountain. In time, the monster stopped attacking the village. Gradually, the hills and fields regained the blessing of the land. Thanks to the villagers working together to create an irrigation system, the crop fields also recovered their bounty. The village was far poorer than it had been before. However, it was richer than ever in smiles.
マックスデラックスメテオバスター
それは読んでいた。鈴の目、今日こそお前は星になる。
What?
くーメガトンカウンターホームラン。
はい、ムツはピッチャです。
違うね、セゼがビッチャだね。
そっちがピッチャです。ビッチャビッチャ
ビッチャビッチャビッチャって
ムツがビッチャ、ムツがビッチャ。違うよ、鈴の目がビッチャだよ。ビッチャビッチャ。
あの二人は相変わらずだの。
The sixth winter was harsh, but the children were as resolute as ever. They had heard this snowball fight with the grey snow dirtied by the soot. The adults grinned as they sighed and thanked the god who had preserved their children's smile. Their reserves were scarce as always, but everyone worked together like family and managed to make it to spring. The seventh year turned out to be the turning point when the villagers built an elegant altar at the abandoned temple and worshipped Kurokami Toe there. In the past, they had constantly prayed to the dear god to forgive them, but this year was a bit different. They were grateful that amidst their trials, the villagers had supported one another and renewed their reverence for God. They didn't wish for the curse to end this year. Instead, they thanked it. And then the seventh winter ended, and the curse of 7 years came to a close. The people noticed the hills and fields had regained their former glory. Yet the eternally grey sky cleared up as though it was never been there, and the long-forgotten scent of fresh verdure rode the wind once more.
ミコ様、これはひょっとして六神様が。
はい、六神様のお声が聞こえます。これで村を覆う呪いは終わりです。
Eventually, the people built a magnificent shrine to worship Kurokami Toe and named it Noroimoto Shrine, so that the future generation would never forget the trial of the divine curse they had faced, without any lies. And as proof of their god's miracle, they enshrined the broken bell as the shrine's shintai. On the day it was completed, Mutsu and Suzunome heard a voice from above.
我こそは六神彦の命の呪いなり。よくぞ我らの呪いを受けながらも神を敬う気持ちを失わずに我らを慰め祭り続けた。兄上さん、5本六神彦の命は村人たちを正しく導いたそなたらに特別な褒美を与えよと仰せになられた。
What was that?
一つあるんだ。
なんでしょう。
君を救うために盆栽を割ったあの日のあの奇跡。もちろん天の奇跡であることには間違いないんだけど、誰かが、それも君にとてもよく似た誰かが僕に その奇跡を祈ってくれたから
Huh?
奇跡が起きた。
そのようなことが。ではその祈ってくれた方は私の恩人なのですね。
僕はその人に感謝したい。
なれば願いはいかんに。
その人に笑顔を。どれほどの悲しみの中にあっても笑顔を取り戻すことができる。
Oh my god.
そんな奇跡をその人に。
Followed. No. What? Everyone else as he attended. Suzumu's mother was shocked by her son's mysterious death, but his father was oddly calm. That was because he had received a revelation in a dream. I told him how Suzumu had accomplished something very important. Now, how he brought about a miracle to save someone dear, knowing the cost. How he lost his life in exchange, and how this was what he wanted. Mr. Suzuhara was sure the dream was real. As the president of the LCSC, can I read the eulogy? She spoke of how Suzumu was most unlike a boy of his age, and was respected and loved by all. She concluded the speech by speaking for all of them by saying she wished she could have had more time with him. Kanae went over to the casket and told Suzumu how she was doing, how she gained the strength to carve her own path in life after he'd saved her. She would be leaving home and setting out on her own in the near future, but far more positive reasons this time. Princess Elise of Wonderland will finally be going on her big adventure, she sighed through choked sobs. Subakiko cried her heart out at first, but eventually she could no longer hold herself back and clung to Suzumu's body, shouting in a manner indistinguishable from sobbing. She was the one who embodied everyone's anger at his sudden and unfair death. In my heart, I will always be your wife, she said, and gave Suzumu one last kiss. Riria raced to the funeral during a gap in her busy schedule. She didn't break down, probably because mature women were strong against this sort of thing. But she knew the truth. She was only acting tough and putting off her sorrow for a short while. She was prepared to spend many nights from this day onward weeping for him. Natsuya was less sad and more in denial of his best friend's death. Suzumu really would be dead if he believed it, so he made it all the way to this point still not accepting the truth. But once he saw Suzumu in the casket, his weak resolve shattered into pieces. With tears streaming from his eyes, he placed his prized one-of-a-kind super rare card in casket with his friend. And next was Toe. On the outside, she looked like the calmest of them all. Her face appeared to be emotionless as it was at school. Now that she's been freed from the curse, she shouldn't have needed a doll anymore. But she still carried one with her all the time, because unless she kept holding tight onto it, her emotions might burst out. Hinagata gently placed her hand on Toe's shoulder. It's okay. You can let it all out at times like this. But Toe just shook her head. She refused to cry. After all, Suzumu had brought about the miracle because he didn't want her to cry ever again. That was why she had to send him off with a smile. And yet, there was something wrong with her. Why her eyes were burning? She swore she would never cry. Suzumu had spent 1,000 years to set her free, so she had to smile just as long. Toe gave Suzumu's body the best smile she could muster. It was strained and hardly what most people would call genuine, but it was a smile nonetheless. Teardrops made rivers down her cheeks, and yet she smiled.
そうだ、スズム。みんなに聞いたぞ。みんな、お前とキスをしたというのに。
We die, really?
私だけしてない。死んじゃったスズムとキスしてもそんなのキスに入らないぞ。
Toe mastered her courage and gave Suzumu her first kiss. The kiss she kept from Kurokami Toe no matter how much she prodded her. What? Really? Finally, Hinagata came over and leaned into the casket, almost like she was having one final chat in secret with Suzumu. Brother, are you alright with this? The 1,000 years curse has ended, but is this really how it should be? I know how you feel, brother, but still, if you understand, please grant me one request. Please use please use your power just this once to bring back a miracle. Please, just this once. Brother. Hinagata rose with bitterness swelling in her heart. The curse had already been broken. Rokugami Hikonomikoto had returned to the heavens. No one would answer her. The soot within her would likely vanish sooner or later. After the sutras were chanted, the funeral presenter told everyone to see Suzumu off one last time. They all gathered at the altar and put flowers in the casket. Suzumu's portrait up above was smiling, but his body looked like it was sleeping, his mouth agape like an innocent child's. The girls couldn't hold back their tears at the contrast between the two Suzumus. And finally, the time came to close the casket. Once the lid was shut, Suzumu's face would be lost to them forever. In the last moment, Toe finally broke down. She ran over to the casket and raised her voice for the first time, sobbing.
10年遅い。100年遅い。1000年遅い。次は何年だ。何年遅くなる。1000年でもいいからずっと待ってるから。だから絶対にまた帰ってくると約束してくれ。スズム、
じゃあ今帰るよ、トエ。
Toe jolted upright. She swore she heard Suzumu's voice.
スズム、離せ。私の気が触れたんじゃない。聞こえた。確かに聞こえたんだ。スズムの声がした。スズムは生きてる。生きてるんだ。
Benar? What? The more the mourners all gasped in shock as the flowers filled out of the casket.
スズム、生きてる。生きてるよ。何をボサッとしてるんですか。先輩生きてるんですよ。早く棺から出してあげて。
みんなここは
葬儀場よ。あなたのね。
誰の？それよりすっごくお腹が空いたんだ。トエ？
スズム、いつの間に私のことを慣れ慣れしく名前で呼ぶようになったんだ。
君こそ僕のことを名前で呼んでるよ。
いいんだ。私たちは互いを名前で呼び合おうと決め合った。1000年も前に。はいはい、お葬式中止です。誰かお医者様を早く。
Yes, Riryad, the logical one. Please, someone call a doctor.
お腹空いてるって。お供えの落があるけど食べる？
Well, Well, it was the offering for the dead, right? Technically.
食べる。私が食べる。だってもうお葬式意味ないし。食ってやる。こんなもんみんな食ってやる。こっち
さすがはグレートススハラだぜ。デッキの最後に死者蘇生を仕込んでやがったな。
俺このカード僕が欲しかったやつくれるの？
おっと残念だな。こいつはモンスターがフィールドに戻るとき手札に戻るんだ。
The aftermath was a total mess. The whole room was a jumble of shock and joy at this unprecedented occurrence. No one had ever heard of the subject of his own funeral stuffing his cheek with sushi offered to his casket. Suzumo's parents laughed and cried when they got a call from the crematorium, asking why the hearse hadn't arrived. It really was a total mess, but it didn't matter. Not after a miracle like this. Afterwards, the doctor gave Suzumo a checkup, and with the exception of some minor atrophy, he passed with a clean bill of health. They kept him hospitalized for a few days to be safe, but by the next week, Suzumo had returned to his day-to-day life.
来たよ。それ。
Once Suzumo entered the club room, the member of the club set off the party poppers all at once. Suzumo was literally bathed in colors from all the confetti. Soft drinks and tea sat on the table, with the words "Welcome back from the dead" written on the blackboard.
よ、墓場帰り。また墓場に行ったら血祭りだからね。こっちも大切な人がお葬式で蘇生しましたってツイッターにつぶやいたらお祭り騒ぎですよ。大切な人って誰のことだろうって。もう論点ずれてますよね。おいらもいろんな摩訶不思議を経験してきたけど、こういうのは初めてだったね。おかえり、進む。
ただいま、トエ。
それでね、今日は鈴原先輩と黒髪先輩にお聞きしたいことが山ほどございまして。クロッチとスズムン、先日以来どうしてチミたちは名前で呼び合う関係になったのかね。スズム、私以外にそう呼んでいい人がどうしてもう一人いるわけ？むしろならば私たちにもその呼び方を解禁するべきだと思いません？スズムン、ことと次第によっちゃ今日この場でまた墓場送りだからね。いつからあんたたちはそういう関係なの？クロッチ、ごまかさない。いつからなんですか、先輩。
1000年前かな。
Oh, so sweet.
やれやれ、つくづくモテるグレートな男だぜ。
あなただってグレートよ。ススハラくんのグレートブラザー。あなたがここにあることはそれもまた奇跡の証なのだから。
奇跡の証？それウルトラレアカードの奇跡の証っすか？先生もやってたんですか、ゲーム？
何の話？先生よくわかんないわ。
Rather, even this miracle was part of the fate's design from the start, wasn't it? For there to be something even us, the fragments of the gods, were not aware of. Fate is quite the capricious one. Hinagata hair shone in the sunlight as she gulped down a non-alcoholic beer. It almost looked like an antler of sacred deer could be seen in the radiance.
これでよろしゅうございます。兄上さん。我が六神彦の御の呪いなり。呪いゆえに残酷にて候。